Good day everyone. Me and my partner Reina are going to discuss to you our topic, which is the romantic or romanticism. So, let us start. What is romanticism? Romanticism. It is a movement or style of art, literature, and music in the late 18th and early 19th century in Europe. So, Romanticism started in Europe. During this period, the movement showed most strongly in arts like music and literature. Poems, books, and music composers emerged on this era. For example, William Blake, who wrote mysterious poems like The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Also, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who wrote his famous book named The Social Contract. Besides, romantic artists emphasize the individual and imagination. So, for the Romantics, imagination rather than reason was the most important creative faculty. Hence, artists here are into imaginations, more into intuitions, all kinds of moods and feelings. So, what is individualism in Romanticism? Well, it is the cultural and psychological nativity of the self, meaning freedom of the self. There is freedom of the self. Likewise, my partner Reina is going to discuss it further for you.
Another explanation for Romanticism is that it embodies a broad range of disciplines from painting to music to literature. Artists were also focused on passion, emotion, and sensation over intellect and reason. Romanticism's focal points are imagination, emotion, and freedom. Artists from this period or era express how they feel through their works.
So, difference between romance and romanticism. To understand more this topic, which is the romanticism, it is not about romance. Romance, it is a typical word used in love relationships. So, let us differentiate romance and romanticism. Romance, it depicts the feelings that occur in love relationship, courtship, and secret lovers or even impossible lovers. So, in romance, there is an intimate feelings between two lovers. A feeling of excitement, strong attraction, and mystery associated with love. Unlike in romantic or romanticism, it is more into exploring the truth of the imagination rather than scientific truth. And now, Reina will differentiate romanticism from romance.
So now, Mike has already discussed to you what romance is. I am going to differentiate Romanticism from romance. Romanticism is a philosophy of freedom that is manifested in literature, fine arts, music, and painting of the 19th century in Europe and America. The poet who first used the term romantic to describe literature is the German poet Friedrich Schlegel. He defined it as a literature depicting emotional matter in an imaginative form. That means that the artist's works during this period or era were a product of their imagination and emotion. So, who started Romanticism? Romanticism in English literature started in the late 18th century with the poets William Blake, William Wordsworth, and Samuel Taylor Coleridge. So, these artists are famous during the late 18th century of Romanticism. And then it continued into the 19th century with the second generation Romantic poets, most notably Percy Bysshe Shelley, John Keats, and Lord Byron. So these another batch of artists were also famous during the Romanticism under the second generation, which is the 19th century. So those artists in late 18th century and 19th century were the famous ones during the Romanticism. They were also the ones who started Romanticism.
And now let's move on to the father of Romanticism. The father of Romanticism is Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He is a French writer and a philosopher. One of his written works is The Social Contract, wherein the first line of the social contract is the most famous, which is the man is born free and he is everywhere in chains. With that line, Rousseau stated that people could only experience true freedom if they lived in a civil society that ensured the rights and well-being of its citizens. This book, The Social Contract, emphasizes the need for individuals to play a responsible part in civil society if they want their liberty to be assured. So, if they want freedom, they have to be responsible. Moreover, he was also a contemporary and considered one of the earliest prominent voices in 19th century Romanticism.
Are the characteristics of Romanticism. First is the profound love of nature. Writers love nature and observe it closely to better express life. Next characteristic is that they focus on the self and the individual. Writers here focus more on their self, their emotions, and imaginations as an individual. Another characteristic of Romanticism is that it has a fascination with the supernatural, the mysterious, and the Gothic. Writers during this period or era are inspired by supernaturals. They made their artworks with a theme of mysterious and Gothic.
So, these are also the characteristics of Romanticism. A yearning for the picturesque and the exotic. Exotic in Romanticism is one of the most important aspects, while picturesque, along with the aesthetic and cultural strands of Gothic, was part of the emerging romantic sensibility of the 18th century. So another, a deep-rooted idealism. So what is idealism and romanticism? Romanticism or romantic idealism refers to the movement that placed a high value on concepts related to romanticism such as emotions and individualism. So, as what I have said earlier, romantic individualism, it refers to the cultural and psychological nativity of the self. Another, a passionate nationalism. So, romantic nationalism, it results in the interaction between cultural production and political, though became the celebration of the nation as an inspiring idea for artistic expression, and the instrumentalization of that expression in political. So nationalism has been part in the romanticism.
So we are going to present to you some of the famous Romantic era artists. First is William Blake. He is an English Romantic painter who was also a philosopher and poet. William Blake was an English poet, painter, and printmaker. Largely unrecognized during his life, Blake is now considered a seminal figure in the history of the poetry and visual art of the Romantic age. He embraced his imagination as the body of God or human existence itself. Another famous Romantic era artist is Thomas Cole, an American artist famous for his landscapes and also for founding the Hudson River School art movement. He was an Anglo-American painter known for his landscape and history paintings. His work is known for its romantic portrayal of the Americans' wilderness. Another famous Romantic era artist is John Constable, an English Romantic painter known for his paintings of the English countryside. He was an English landscape painter in the Romantic tradition. He was the one who wrote his friend John Fisher in 1821 that painting is but another word for feeling.
So here are also the famous Romantic era artists. We have Francisco Goya, a Spanish artist who became known for his dark artwork as well as his protests of war. So Francisco Goya was a Spanish Romantic painter and printmaker, considered as the most important Spanish artist of the late 18th and early 19th centuries. Another, we have Eugene Delacroix. Eugene Delacroix, the foremost French Romantic painter. Perhaps his most famous painting is Liberty Leading the People. So, Eugene was also the greatest French Romantic painter. Last one, we have Caspar David Friedrich, a German artist who painted sublime landscapes which often showed the power of nature. So David was also the 19th century German Romantic landscape painter, generally considered as the most important German artist of his generation.
We are going to show to you some of the famous artworks during this period, Romanticism. First is The Wanderer above the Sea of Fog, which was made by Caspar David Friedrich. Some believe Wanderer above the Sea of Fog to be a self-portrait of Friedrich himself. The figure stands in contemplation and self-reflection, mesmerized by the haze of the sea fog as if it were a religious and spiritual experience. He wonders in that moment about the unforeseen future. Another famous artwork during Romanticism is the work of Francisco Goya, which is the 3rd of May 1808. The 3rd of May 1808 shows a different side of the Romantic artist, the side of revolution. In this painting, Francisco Goya is commemorating the Spanish resistance to France and the armies of Napoleon. The painting has movement, drama, and emotion typical of the Romantic era. It was also one of the first paintings used to protest the horrors of wars. Next is Liberty Leading the People by Eugene Delacroix. It is a painting usually associated with the July Revolution of 1830 in France. It is a large canvas showing a busty woman in the center raising a flag and holding a bayonet. She is barefoot and walks over the bodies of the defeated, guiding a crowd around her.
So here are also the examples of Romanticism. We have The Titan's Goblet by Thomas Colley. In that painting, you can see the sense of fantastic, somewhat like illusions of mind, since it is already explained that romantic artists are into imaginations. So the Titans were from Greek mythology. They were giants who ruled before the Greek god Zeus. Zeus, the god of the sky in ancient Greek mythology. And here, the sheer size of the goblet gives you an idea as to how enormous or frightful the Titans must have been. We can really imagine how big they are. They might have 3 heads or more, yellowish teeth and creepy faces. And we have another, The Nightmare by Henry Fazeli. As you can see, the figure that sits upon the woman's chest is often described as an imp or incubus, a type of spirit lie atop people in their sleep, or even to have sexual intercourse with sleeping women. Oh my god, that is ridiculous. I think so. Well, Fazeli's painting is subjective, leaving open the possibility that the woman in that painting is simply dreaming, a frightening dream. Besides, that evil spirit, according to some, it tortures humans while they sleep. So we have The Wrath of the Medusa, painted by Theodore Géricault. The Wrath of the Medusa depicts a dramatic moment and all emotions human beings can feel in such a situation. There is fairness, there is also pain, hope, and madness. Géricault utilized a somber, dramatic color palette that was characteristic of Romantic painters. As the focus of the painting, as you can observe, there is mass of corpses, where flesh tones are also present.
To identify an artwork, we have to observe closely the picture. First is The Wanderer of the Sea of Fog, which was made by Caspar David Friedrich. As you can see in the picture, the skies are gloomy or cloudy as a sign of imminent danger and fear of the unknown. Another artwork is the artwork of John Constable, Berriwagen, or in English, The Hayway. It focused on the nature with the mystical landscapes with dark, mysterious ambience, dark in both a literal and figurative sense. As you can see in that painting, man does not stand back and observe nature but is instead intimately a part of nature, just as the trees and birds are. The figurine driving the cart is not out of scale with its environment. Constable depicted the oneness with nature that so many of the Romantic poets declared.
So here are also the examples as to how to define the Romantic arts. So we have the artwork of Colly Thomas named The Course of Empire Destruction in the year 1836. As you can see in the picture, it depicts dramatic scenes of man or nature, occasionally with undertones of nature's triumph over man. It is clearly shown in the picture that there is war between man and nature. There is fire. If you look closely in the picture, there is fire, gloomy skies, and people who are drowning. Next, we have The Saturn Devouring His Son by Francisco de Goya. The way you're going to define this artwork is like this. So, in this painting, there are horrific and gothic images where faces express feelings such as intense pain, anguish, anger, or fear. For those who do not know yet, according to the traditional interpretation, it depicts the Greek myth of the Titan Kronos. So, Titan Kronos was the youngest of the 12 Titans, who feared that he would be overthrown by one of his children, so he ate each one of them upon their birth. So Titan Kronos was full of insecurities and fear. So, those are ways on how to define Romantic art. There is a description to the work of art, your observations, the kind of expression an artwork shows, and its underlying meaning. Basically, it is all about an artist's imagination, but I want you to know that in every imagination, there is a certain aspect of life affecting to it. It's either affected by real life situations, or a sense of avoiding the reality, or jumping to go beyond reality.